again, I'm Dawn Stevens. I've been working with Cengage since personal trainers started in the dark ages. We've gone through, I pilot tested it, and we've gone through, I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread as far as I was concerned, because I could give these kids a grade for doing something they're supposed to do anyway, and I didn't have to work for it. So that made a real good thing. I live in Northwest Mississippi. If you've heard the statistics, we're the worst in everything. Even though we've had more Rhodes Scholars than any other state in the union, but that beside the point. I don't get many of those. But my kids come from a very rural area, and they don't know big words. They don't know big concepts. A lot of them do good to read and write and get out of high school. So what I have done is taken my lovely Cengage book, my Warren book. I used the principles 1 and 2 from a sole proprietorship standpoint. And I have put it down, as I call it, on an archibutler level. That's the little hole in the wall where I grew up. So I try to put the language down on that level, a base level, where anybody can understand it. So, you know, the first chapter I go through about, you know, assets being what did you get, you know, it's what you own, liabilities being what you owe, owner's equity, technically, if it was a math problem, it'd be what's left, but, you know, and then we go into the other 4 parts. So when I come to journalizing, I found these, I mean, I think of things at 2 in the morning, but this was one of my 2 of the morning questions. My debit question is, what did you get? What did the company get? And my credit question is, how did the company get it? And that kind of takes the hurt out of the debit and credit part until they're ready to realize it's a debit and a credit. So I've got this wonderful thing in my classroom at the new school. I used to have to do everything on the board. And I've got a smart podium where I can write on it if I want to. And we've got the software, and I'm in a computer lab now. Everybody's got their own computer. So to keep them from being on Facebook or looking at the football scores or seeing what their JUCO ratings are, because yes, Northwest was #1 in the football last year, national champions, and it looks like we're heading there again. Plug for Northwest. But so to keep them from doing that, I use the software called Land School that lets me take over their screens and show them what I'm doing on my smart podium. So we're going to pretend I'm doing this. Now, if you're in a regular classroom, this will work the same way because you can just project it. And this is how I've been doing this for years. The problem that I selected was exercise 2.7 is because I wanted to show them how to journalize. And I print out the problems because, you know, sometimes they don't get to see the screens well, and I want them to have a piece of paper mainly so they'll have something to write on when I want them to write it down. And we work through these problems where, you know, I ask them the questions, they answer, and then as I'm typing it out, they can write it down, and they've got a good example from there on. So I'm going to sit down for just a second, and we're going to go through a couple of these examples. All right, here's the scenario. We have Harding Consulting Company, and they have the following accounts in their ledger: cash, accounts receivable, supplies, office equipment, accounts payable, Cami Harding Capital, Cami Harding Drawing, fees earned, rent expense, advertising expense, utilities, and miscellaneous expenses. We're going to do these transactions, and we're going to, as I type them, you're going to write them, but we're going to talk about it and do it all together. Okay, it says the first date is March the 1st, so MAR1. Okay, it says we paid rent for the month of $2,500. What did the company get? Okay, so we paid rent for the month of $2,500. Well, rent is not something you can keep forever, is it? It's kind of gone as soon as you pay for it. So that would be rent expense. Okay, we have a rent expense here. So we're going to debit, and it's $2,500. All right, how did the company get that rent? What did they do? They paid for it. Okay, how do we pay for things in the United States? With cash. All right, so we're going to credit cash. And then we go on to the next one. You know, and we go through the same scenario over and over and over again. And it never fails. But when I pay with cash, I pay with a debit card. Have y'all ever heard that? Okay, This is how I explain that. And that usually comes out about the first class meeting. I say, y'all, from the bank's perspective, when you deposit that money in the bank, they owe it to you. That's why when you do the deposit, they set it up as a credit. But when you write a check or you swipe that debit card, guess what? You're drawing it out. They don't owe it to you anymore. So from the bank's perspective, since they don't owe you that obligation, and we all know that if you owe somebody, it's a liability, when the liability goes down, you debit. And that kind of clears it up for them. So these are my helpful hints on how to do this. What did I get? How did I get it? And it takes the hurt out. So we go from short-term to long-term. Repetition, that's the key. So I'll say those questions over and over and over and over and over again. Sometimes they come out in my sleep. And, but it gets the point across. And then as we go through and go a little further, I'll say, okay, what's the normal balance? What type of account is cash? Cash is an asset because it's not my own. Well, what's the normal balance of an asset? Well, it's a debit. Then you increase with a debit. And so those are my little helpful hints to try to get it on a base